Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
Can you talk more about practical ways to be more friendly to oneself?
Well, one of the reasons we're not friendly toward ourselves is because we're not actually noticing that other people in the world have the same problems that we do. We think we're somehow specially horrible. If we would poke our heads up and look around and see that we have a lot in common with other people, and we're kind of all in this together, right? There's nothing that you have that bothers you about you that someone else doesn't also have, or some millions of people don't often also have that bothers them about them. But when we're in this iPod, thinking that it's just me, I'm just like beset in this special way, then it's very hard to be friendly to yourself. But when we can see that we have this in common with so many people and that this is just the human condition, then there's a sweetness that enters into our suffering. And that sweetness takes the form of a feeling of friendliness or even just helplessness. There's a certain sweetness to just being helpless in the face of our own condition. I keep coming back to this word poignancy. There's a poignancy to our condition. But we only recognize that when we recognize that we're in the same boat with everybody else. And this is not about us alone. We can't solve it alone. We came in this way. It's not our fault. And this is just how humans are. It's just how humans are. I said the other day something like, there's nothing wrong with you. These are just the experiences you're having. Of course, everyone's not having the same life. Some people's lives are much more difficult than other people's. That's true. But no matter how difficult your life is, there are other people for whom life is just as difficult. You're never alone in your difficulties. Never. And whatever we've been given, suffering with self-hatred and self-denigration will never solve anything, will not make anything better. No one is going to swoop in and say, oh, you hate yourself so much, here's your reward. It's just not going to work that way. So the best thing to do is feel your connection to other people. Feel that you're part of a human condition that people share. And, just kind of, like treat yourself like a little cat. Pet yourself.
Okay.
In order for suffering to change into just pain, you must recognize that you're part of a vast network of other beings. There is simply no way to break through that sense of suffering if you still maintain your separateness and the specialness of what you are experiencing. There's simply no way to feel friendly toward yourself in that if you do that to yourself. Suffering happens when we have pain, but we are railing against it in some way or feeling that we're being attacked or specially singled out in some way. That's a big aspect of suffering. If I love someone and they leave me, I'm going to feel pain, even if I'm enlightened. That's just how it is. Pain is normal. If I stub my toe, I'm going to feel pain no matter who I am. But if I feel like I am the only one who stubbed my toe, or my stubbed toe is worse than everyone's, or it was my fault that I stubbed my toe, or I should have avoided it if I weren't such a jerk, or all these things are suffering. All these kinds of thoughts are suffering. But if I just say, hey, there's a million people out there that stub their toe. This is just normal. There's nothing unusual about this. This is normal. This is human life. I love what Jitsuma Tenzin Palmo said. She's one of the first Western women to become a Buddhist nun. She spent 12 years meditating in a cave in the Himalayas. And she was having a hard time, and she was going, "Oh my God, why am I having such a hard time? I spent 12 years in a cave. Wasn't that enough, God?" And then she thought, this is samsara. What do I expect? It's just what happens. It's just they're just experiences that happen. Don't take them on as your personal burden or that you caused them or anything. They just happen. And it's everything that happens, even mass murder, is completely normal. There's nothing abnormal about anything going on here. By definition, that's an impossibility. If it's happening, it's not abnormal. Right?
How can one be more skillful when there are people in your life that really are kind of attached to that suffering? How does, as a practitioner, what's the skillfulness to cultivate?
Every circumstance is completely unique. Sometimes we can lend a hand, and sometimes our hand is slapped down, right? And also, other people's karmas of suffering also are not our fault. There actually is no fault. There is no blame. It's not like it's not our fault. It's not their fault. But whose fault is it? Let's find out. Maybe it's the government's fault. From the perspective of this tradition, everything is made by God, of God, for God. So there is no blame to go around. Blame is another thing that is just like another funny thing that God invented to, look at that. The very least we can do is just remain open-hearted and send loving vibes that person's way now and then. Right? So we can still do that, and those things have impact, right? Prayers and open heart, well wishes have impact. Well, that's what we can do. It's a powerful gesture, especially if someone is annoying us or disappointing us in some way. It's a powerful gesture to keep your heart open and just like sincerely wish the best for them, whatever that might look like. And then we have to get to the place where we feel actual respect for other people in whatever condition they happen to be in. Respect is not the A word. Acceptance. That is a horrible thing to say, I accept you, or I accept that you aren't going to change. Right? It's like, who do you think you are? Going around accepting people. Everybody has just as much of a right to be in whatever condition they are in as you do, and nobody needs your acceptance. It's kind of insulting. Respect, actual respect. And that means if someone doesn't want your help or can't absorb your help or doesn't notice your help, you back off and let them be. Just let them be who they are. That's their right. The feeling like we have to help everyone is egotism. Right? If we're trying to help someone who doesn't want our help, we are being disrespectful and egotistical. We're doing it for ourselves, not for them. Someone doesn't, it's like, I'm sure everyone has experienced this. Some relative gives you a gift that you don't want. And, it's a gift they would want. Right? They haven't taken the time to get to know you well enough to figure out what it is you would really want. One time my father called me up and he said he wanted to get me a gift certificate to some women's clothing store. I don't remember what it was. He asked me if I would like that. And I said, not really. He wouldn't take that for an answer. He just said, well, I really like their clothes. And so, a week later, I get a gift certificate to this store. Some of us are like that with the help that we try to give people. I always try, when people are suffering or seem like they need help, I ask them if they want my help. And if they say no, I leave or back off. And you might want to think also about, why do we want other people to change? That's a very rich question. Maybe we're lonely and we just wish they were a better companion for us. And if they just changed in these 5 ways, they would be better companions for us. And some people spend whole lifetimes trying to change another person so that they can have a better friend or a better husband or wife or lover, companion or something, spouse, sibling. They want other people to work on their stuff so that those other people can satisfy their needs. And we can ask people to change and we can help people to change, but if they don't want to or they're incapable of it, it's actually violence against them to keep insisting. And it's definitely not being a responsible, mature person to not just say, well, this isn't the kind of friendship or marriage or whatever that I want, so I'm going to leave. Because most people will stick around badgering another person to do something that they don't want to do or are incapable of doing. You know what happens when you keep insisting that someone do something they're incapable of? They start getting lower and lower self-esteem. Okay? Or they start hiding more and more. It's actually quite mean to insist that other people do things they're not capable of. I do feel strongly in my experience as a teacher and just a human that there always has to be permission given to share our clarity, fierce or otherwise, with another person. And that permission isn't necessarily like I ask you if I have your permission. It can be more subtle than that, right? But it's a delicate dance. Like, when do we really have permission from another person to share what we see? Yeah. Right? And I think that's a sensitivity we should try to develop by looking for signs that there's permission. And another way of saying that would be like feeling for the time when what we have to say might actually be useful. That's also, it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. Sometimes with my students, I'll hang on to things for months or even years waiting for the right moment when I feel like an insight or something I want to share with them will hit the point. It's definitely something I'm still working on and developing. You know, I don't think it's anything we like ever learn 100%. But we should try to have good timing in sharing our clarity, especially. Because if we're really trying to help people, if it's really out of a sense of a deep wish for their well-being, then we're going to have no desire to hurt them. I mean, people may be uncomfortable or momentarily hurt because of their own karma, but we don't want it to backfire, because then we just end up incurring more problems for the person, right? We actually want it to land in a useful way. So I think patience is a great virtue. It is a hard one, yeah.
Sometimes you never get the sign.
That's right.
You just
move on.
You let it go.
That's right.
Because, I mean, if you have this thing that you've had for a year or whatever, there's never a sign that this other person's open.
That's right.
It's your baggage.
The respectful thing to do is just move on. Yeah.
No matter how hard that is.
That's right.
How sad you are.
That's right. That's respectful. That's your sadness. They might not be sad at all. One of the more puzzling moments for me with students is when I say, okay, I'm going to be easier on you. And they go, oh, thank you. If any teacher of mine ever said, I'm going to be easier on you, I'd be like, oh my God, what's wrong? But there are people who really feel relieved when I say I'm going to be easier on them. And I have to honor that, right? I have to respect that.